Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Olympus Wealth Strategies podcast, where we take your finances to great heights. I'm your host, John Sidery, and very honored to have a special guest with us today. I've got Chris Marsh, who is the CEO of Capital Sotheby's, a local realty company here in town, but has a global reach. We'll get to the meaning of really what that means and ultimately the high level of service that Chris provides to his clients. So Chris, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting. Glad to be here.
Well, thank you. Always like to kind of have guests tell their own story, right?
Sure.
I'm not going to be able to do you justice as well as you can. So maybe tell us a little bit about who you are personally and professionally, and kind of what has led to you ultimately being the owner of your office.
Sure. So I've been in Little Rock for 20 years. I started my career as sort of unique in a space as like a chamber director at 21, and then moved to Columbus, Mississippi, and worked in economic development for a couple of years, and saw the impact that true community and economic development has on a space. And then Entergy, Arkansas, called and asked me to come over to work in their economic development group. So that brought me back to Little Rock, or back to Arkansas. And I covered the entire state. And that was incredibly rewarding. And in that, we were helping communities position themselves differently so they could attract companies to locate in spaces. And then after, I worked with them for about 7 years, and then moved over to a consulting firm, Boyette Strategic Advisors. They have an office here in Little Rock, one in Atlanta, and did economic development at that sort of national level. Our territory primarily was from Texas to the Carolinas, Florida, down to Boston.
Wow.
And in that, we did a lot of strategic planning work, a lot of economic development studies, and we also helped companies choose sites in communities. All that said, as that sort of basis of real estate has always been in my sort of sideline, basically.
Probably part of economic development in every step of the way of your career.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, from an economic development standpoint, much like a residential home search, it's a process of elimination, right? You're going through to see what do you not like in a space. And so that always felt right. And plus, I love beautiful properties. And so during the pandemic, my husband and I were thinking through flipping some properties. And at that level, the agent that I was working with, who was their owner broker at Sotheby's, was my agent. And she said, you know what, if you're going to do this, one of you needs to be part of the transaction. You need to be a contractor. You need to be the real estate agent. You've got to have some type of piece of the puzzle, basically. And so I got my real estate license, and with her, I wanted to do that for us, and then some family transactions, if that was the case. And then the bug sort of bit, right? Like, people started calling and saying, "Hey, I see that you're doing this. Will you do that for me?" The answer was yes, right? Because I base my business on people who know, like, and trust me, that they know, like, and trust, right? It's all referral based. And I feel a lot of pride in doing that because it's wrapped in service. And so that sort of snowballed into my still working at the consulting company, and then also sort of moonlighting on the side as this real estate agent, until it just didn't work that way. I mean, like, I was working 90 hours a week. And probably found that your passion for serving people in real estate just kept growing relative to the consulting. I loved it. Well, that's exactly right, John. So in my roles, both at Entergy and at Boyette in Little Rock, I worked in volunteered with a lot of nonprofits. I have a really great, wonderful, supportive network. And I wasn't able, those jobs never really allowed me to serve them in any way, really. And so it's very rewarding to be in a career that allows me to step in to see them and assist them moving forward in a space, or finding their dream home, or thinking about investment property, or what does their holistic real estate portfolio look like. So that's sort of like this path that we all have in our careers, that you finally find a spot that you're incredibly passionate about and see such rewarding results when those lights go off.
Well, you mentioned a few things there. Obviously, your entire career has been centered around service. And for a lot of listeners, people who are, whether they're business owners or they're aspiring in their career,
sure,
a lot of people want to know what kind of gives you a competitive edge to rise to someone like yourself and your level. So maybe you can fill us in. From what I heard, though, it seems to be around high level service. And that's something that Olympus tries to pride itself on, to separate ourselves as what we call family level service, right?
Nice.
Just truly treating people like you go out of your way for your own family.
Yep.
But then also, it sounds like having the deep passion and desire to love what you do.
That's right. So Simon Sinek, I don't know if you know Simon, but he writes a book about Find Your Why, right? And there's various levels and exercises you do to really uncover that. And in that is the basis of what makes you get up in the morning, right? What's the most rewarding thing for you? And like providing, and I'll get to this other book in a minute, but unreasonable hospitality is selfish pleasure. It is a wonderful thing to do, to be able to see someone move forward in their lives, to provide them with something that's unexpected yet great, like incredibly impactful, is rewarding for me, and I hope it is for them. But I like that's what I want to do, and real estate is an incredible vehicle to do that. It's about connecting people with people and people places, and seeing them further in their journey.
And knowing that you found that perfect piece of real estate for someone where they're going to create what I like to call memory dividends.
Yep.
And have years or decades in that one place because you or your team found that for them.
That's exactly right. I mean, you see in this process of elimination, right? Some buyers will look at multiple properties, 20 properties at times, so that it can be exhausting. But it's 20 properties to calibrate them into finding that one that is absolutely it. And when it's it's all said and done. There's no negotiation almost to be had. They want that property.
Yeah. So obviously here's the $1 million question, right? Everybody wants to know, where are we at in the real estate market?
Sure.
And kind of your take, not only where it's at today, but also maybe where you would anticipate it being, within a year from now.
Yeah. Nationally, all markets are down.
Yeah.
The coastal cities are seeing a slide and a shift. We haven't experienced a dramatic shift yet. Inventory is still low, but that is a factor of those who have bought homes during the pandemic and during a time when interest rates were at 2% or 2.5%, and they can't see the moving for 7% or 8%, and who else? Whatever number is out there right this second. It's hard, but they've got equity in their home. And so there's a piece of that you can help them unpack to know that, their family life has changed and shifted, and they need another spot to be in. And so there's mechanisms to do that, but you can't do it on a lark, and it has to be very strategic in the way that you communicate and dive very deeply with them, not just, hey, you want to go look at a house, or hey, here's some numbers, you want to sell your house. It's much more an advisory role to really uncover what's driving decisions for them. But it's slowed down a little bit. We're about the same as we were last year, but we practice being in front of our sphere of influence and our clients daily. That's our regiment, right? And it's fun, right? You're talking to people that know, like, and trust you.
Yeah.
So why not call them?
You're talking to your friends all day.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. Yeah. Yeah. And providing some context to what's happening in the market.
Well, sure.
But it's never rooted in, hey, do you want to sell your house? It's more about like, hey, what's up? Like, what's happening in your world?
Seems like your team is not, for maybe a old or bad stereotype, they're not transactional, right? They're very much, like you said, advisory.
So you hit on a really great word, because that's exactly how we feel in anything that we do. Is it's not transactional, it's transformative. Like the experience with us walking through a real estate transaction is much more than just signing your name on a piece of paper, right? Because the way that you feel in your home, and moving forward with that property, and if you let us in to shoot it, to sell it, to market it, that's a very intimate space for a buyer or seller to allow someone else to be in, right? and you have to honor that. And so in doing that is really, driving down deeply with them to make sure that they're making the best decision, that they're with the best facts that they're able to make.
Yeah. Well, for talking about kind of some real estate insight for buyers right now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk that I hear from clients or just people that having conversations with. Is the traditional 30-year mortgage, is that still as prevalent when you and your agents get to closing, or ultimately are people looking at ARMs for different finance options to kind of think, hey, interest rate cuts we hope are on the horizon?
Yeah. Both and. We're still seeing conventional loan vehicles that are taking the client across the finish line, knowing that depending on the loan structure that they may be able to refinance after 18 months or 24 months. We're seeing some ARMs. We're also seeing some rate buy downs. That's also an interesting thing that I would tell a buyer to consider is if a home is priced at X, call it $500,000. But you may want to offer $475,000. I would offer $500,000 and put $25,000 in a rate buy down to ask the seller to buy down your rate over a 3-2-1 or a 2-1 or whatever your lender is able to do for you. That's going to save you in the long run.
Well, let's unpack that for a lot of people who maybe don't understand what that is.
Sure.
Can you break that down a little further?
Yeah. So at $500,000, your interest rate is X, call it 7%. What's that going to look like for you? Let's raw numbers, $3,500 a month, right? Okay. Whatever.
Yeah.
In a rate buy down, if you ask the seller to buy down your rate, your interest rate may be at 5%, but with the 3-2-1, you may realize 4%, and then you'll realize 5%, and then you'll realize 6%, and then eventually you'll get back to 7 in year 4. Well, new things happen in the market all the time, right? And so you are affording the home that you want without paying the interest or the mortgage rate at that 7%, and kind of carrying that over time. And then trying to see, and sure, you're playing a game. You might be right back up at 7% after 4 years. You don't know. Neither do I. We don't know what's going to happen in the interest rate market or in the market in general. But what you do know is that those vehicles are out there to help make decisions for the informed buyer. And what's $25,000 in closing costs when it can be applied to something like that helps you in the long run in budgeting for your home and what you want to do in your life.
And allows you to create flexibility in those years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a great insight piece right there. Let's maybe pivot to sellers though.
Okay.
Obviously like you mentioned, you help people here in town and have a national and global reach.
Sure.
But obviously you see people who go to list their home, and like you mentioned, the market has cooled off a little bit.
Yeah.
But what are things that maybe create a home to sit longer than the seller obviously would like, or your team would hope for?
Yeah.
And is there anything that they could do prepping ahead of time before putting the stake in the yard?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people can put a sign in the yard and go about their business and hope that home is going to sell. For us, there's prep work in selling a home. First, we have to be really honest about price. Yeah. Aspirational pricing is out the window. I would even challenge you to price a little under market in hopes that you're going to get over ask. So we have to be very conscious about where we are in pricing it in that market on the day that we launch. So we may have a listing appointment with data that shows a 3 or 6 month lag, but we may not go to market for another month. Right. So we got to look at the data again to make sure that we're calibrated exactly with what's there, and see what the competition looks like. So that's one thing. You really have to pay attention to price and understand where you are as a seller and what your threshold is. I can't go below X. Sure, everybody wants wants the outcome that they deserve and as much money as you can put in your pocket. Right. I get it. Of
course.
But we have to be realistic about where the market is. So pricing is one. The other is your home showing as best as it could. I know that sounds kind of silly, but I mean, is the landscape freshened up? Did you have someone come in and help edit and rearrange things? Does it flow and function as a new buyer would see it, or how you live in it? Those are two separate things.
That's a great distinction, right? Because how we end up living our lives in our home
Sure.
is not necessarily indicative of somebody who's walking in for the first time with eyes thinking, can I live here?
70% of the buyers can't see where their stuff is going to go in the home. You have to help them in that, right? So like if you have a dining room that is converted into an office, they think there's no dining room, right? And so you have to really think through who's the buyer personas that are coming through the property in order to get that property ready and positioned the best that it can. So, I mean, that could take a couple of weeks, right? Or a month or two. Right. And then we need to also walk through and make sure, are there any repairs that need to happen? Do you need to repaint some things? Do you want to get a pre-inspection? I would say yes. The buyers
at least know ahead of time what you would anticipate needing fixed, or fix it on the front end
all day long, right? I mean, and those things that you see in some older homes in Heights or Hillcrest, that there might be like a step crack in the wall. Well, 9 times out of 10, that's just like a shift in the house, has nothing to do with the foundation. A buyer doesn't know that.
Right.
They think something's wrong with the foundation. So fix the crack, make sure there's nothing wrong with the foundation. And that takes that worry off their plate, right? And so you really have to pay attention to the pricing component, the placement, how your property is shown, and then the position of the property. How is it? What photography and videography work are you doing? And we take that very seriously. At the end of the day, we're storytellers.
Yeah,
we love to be able to expose that property to different types of buyers by showcasing what you can do in a property, right? Do you have a studio set up? I don't know. What is it? Is it an artist studio? Is it some type of music studio? Could it be turned into a game room? Could it be turned into a media room? Really working through those types of things to see what would resonate with the buyer. So you have to have that work done in the beginning, so your marketing strategy can be deployed as you're seeing shifts in the market.
That's a great point. Not only is your team advisors in the current real estate market for clients' future acquisitions or properties they're looking to sell, but also every home and every room is a story.
A story to tell. You bet. Yeah, and you want to piece that out, right? And that's sort of that other piece, other component of seeing what's on the market when you launch. If there's 5 homes in your neighborhood, you want to be the next one that moves.
Right.
Right. And those homes may have been there for 45, 60 days. Who knows? And so seeing how they're shot, what they look like online, where are they priced, and really understanding where you compare to that. I would tell you, if you're coming at the same price and you look the same as the next house down the street, you better price a little under, and get that buyer that's been looking at that house for the last 3 weeks over to your property, because you want to be the next.
It sounds like there's a danger of and right. I think it's not to oversimplify it, but everybody kind of has an idea in their mind of, and they kind of get the anchoring bias, right, of what a certain good or a service or a piece of property is worth in their mind.
That's right.
And so if they see, like you mentioned, on a street and there's 3 homes that are, call it identical, and if I come in and I'm $10,000 listed over that, they're going to think that's a bad deal, or not the deal that I want.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. I mean, in real estate, a vehicle, whatever it is. I mean, the transaction is going to happen when you have a willing seller and a willing buyer that wants to see it across the finish line, right? But our job is advising both parties, depending on who we represent, on level setting, where they are in the market, and what is it that you want out of the transaction.
And it sounds like a piece of that, getting it over the finish line, is the storytelling.
You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. To sort of to that point, especially from a buyer perspective, of they don't know what they're looking at. They don't understand necessarily how they're going to live in that property. They've only been in it for 30 minutes, right? And hopefully you come back for a second showing so you can kind of sink into the property. And that's what we always say with buyers or sellers. these folks need to come and experience the property. If we're selling a condo in downtown Little Rock, you need to see it at night, right? And you need to see it when the city wakes up in the morning. You really need to understand what you're buying. And same way with any other part of Little Rock, but those are important things, and it takes a little time. And it's also difficult being on the market. As a seller, it's exhausting. You have to live like you probably don't live daily, right? Things need to be picked up. And an agent might call to show a property within 30 minutes, and you need to be ready. I know it sounds kind of silly, but that agent they probably had a list of properties that their buyer wanted to see, and they drove by yours or they saw yours online while they were in the car with the agent or driving to meet the agent and said, hey, can you get me in there? You don't know if they're leaving in 3 hours to go to the airport, or they're going back home, or they're making a decision that day. So you really have to plan to be ready, and it can be really difficult as a seller to be on the market. That's why it is our job to limit that time as much as we possibly can. Do the pre-work.
You don't want to be living like that for 6 months.
Yeah, who wants to?
Yeah,
I don't want to. It's exhausting, and it can be frustrating for the agent. I mean, what you want the best outcome for your client, and sometimes those properties sit, and that's also frustrating. It's likely a function of price if that's happening. What you're offering is not what the market is willing to bear. And you as a seller have a couple of decisions to make at that point. Do you want to pull it off the market? Do you want to rent it? Do you want to lease it? Do you want to reduce the price drastically and move forward? Those conversations can be tough and challenging at times, but it's our job to have them.
Yeah. Something I want to make sure we touch on is the Sotheby story.
Yeah.
So you own and operate with your team here in Central Arkansas, and Sotheby's has had a competitive advantage when it comes to high-end and luxury real estate. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, and especially for the listeners out there who are thinking about acquiring a second property or a third property or their dream property, and maybe how your team in conjunction with the global firm work together to help that happen.
Yeah. So the origin of Capital Sotheby's International Realty was from DeSalle Real Estate. Susan DeSalle is our founding broker. She drove that company for about 8 years until she realized she had a decision to make to invest heavily in finding avenues for global reach and for special marketing tools, or to determine if franchising is the next step. And it took us, I was on board at that time, it took us about 7 or 8 months to convince Sotheby's that they needed to be in Little Rock or in Central Arkansas. And part of that is that we're a mid-market community for them or area for them. And we had to expose to them that we do have beautiful luxury properties in here, and that our market was prime for the Sotheby's flag. We launched in 2020, and I'll tell you, I'd never look back. The brand tools that we have, both for marketing a property and print or digital, are unmatched. And then the exposure that the brand has through our website cast all of our properties to 27 exclusive platforms. It could be we've got a cool ranch style property in southwest Arkansas, and it's syndicated to land.com, right, through us. And those are very important highlights for us to be able to showcase to sellers, is that listing with us is not just putting it on the MLS and it casting to the few things that the MLS are connected to, like a Zillow or a Realtor or whatever. You are being exposed globally. And so the question to me is always, why not? Why would you not want your home to reach as many buyers as possible?
Especially when it comes to certain niches, right?
Yeah.
And where it's like, why would my team at Sotheby's not put this on this platform where probably a good amount of interested buyers would be looking?
You bet. And so it's not only, it's cast throughout those various different channels, and then all of our offices, right, are able to see the property. We have 1,100 offices across the world, and 86 countries and territories with 26,000 agents.
Wow,
and
it's a lot of boots on the ground.
It is a lot of boots on the ground.
To know very intimately each market.
That's where we really shine. I will tell you that holistic service in real estate is being able to have a client that's selling their property and they're moving to, call it London, right? They're going or wherever in the world, Telluride, I don't know, whatever your heart's desire. I can pick up the phone and call an agent in that office, and they're going to serve that client, my client that I love dearly, that I want to still have a relationship with after they leave. They'll serve them at the highest level of real estate excellence. That is the most rewarding thing that we can do.
And as business owners, I think I would argue one of the most fearful things that you can have is to know and love and work with somebody that is your client and your friend, and you develop wonderful friendships with, and knowing I need to refer them somewhere because I don't either have the locational expertise or they need a different service, and that goes poorly.
No question, because you're the conduit for it, right? And then it reflects on you. For us, our buyer referrals that come in are a lot of times from our feeder markets, regionally, right? In Kansas City and Oklahoma City and Dallas and Atlanta and Nashville and Chicago, that are, various folks coming in for various different reasons. And we take those as seriously as we take working with our best friend that we've known for 20 years, right? I mean, it is a careful decision to select for that agent, to select the agent in our office, to pass that relationship over to them, and for us to then carry that across the finish line, and hope in return that we're able to sustain that relationship for them going forward.
Well, it sounds like it's not just your office.
Sure.
It's the Sotheby standard.
That's it.
That service.
Well, I mean, and we were able to quantify $4 billion worth of transactions, not our office, but Sotheby's International Realty wide last year. It's an incredible number, right? Out of $156 billion of real estate, $4 billion was
moves the needle.
Yeah, it does, and there's stories within that, right? And that's that storytelling.
A lot of lives touched.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Well, you've kind of already alluded to this, but maybe for people who are considering buying or selling their home or acquiring another property, what should they look for in an agent to represent them?
That's a really great question. And first, you have to like that person, right? You're going to be working with them for a while. You don't know, your timeline may be 3 or 4 months, or it could be a year out. I don't know, but you really need to understand who they are. Do you really connect in a way? And how thoughtful and thorough is that agent? Are they just putting you on a drip? Are they checking in? Are they providing you with resources and tools and conversations and connecting with lenders? And do they know the market? Do you see them as a conduit to connect you with a community? A lot of times. And so for us, it's such a process. Certainly in with a buyer, I mean, we promote having a buyer consultation. You want to really unpack all the things you're going to do for the buyer, and then walk them through the buyer representation agreement, which we all need to have in place before you start representing a buyer.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the shift that we saw last year with the DOJ settlement, and then working with the seller. It is, like I said earlier, inviting someone into your home is a very intimate experience, and you, as an agent, need to honor that, and you have to really listen and unpack their drivers for why they're selling, really get down to it. And so as a buyer or a seller, if you're not experiencing that with the agent that you found online or through a friend or whatever, first you need to know it's okay to say, hey, I don't know if this is working out for me. Do you have anybody else in your office? That's hard. I don't know. Or, I'm gonna do some research and I'll get back to you. And then, kind of take it upon yourself to kind of walk down that path a little bit to see, hey, do you like their Instagram profile? Are they selling a lot in in the neighborhood that you want? Did you meet them in a coffee shop? All those types of things. But for us, it's very relationship centric. We are not one to buy leads and acquire sellers through various different channels that are out there now. It is working with people who know, like, and trust us, who refer us to people they know, like, and trust. And in that, there's that relationship connection there. You feel very, like, as an agent, if I get referred to someone's friend, I want to honor that relationship that I had with the person who's referring me.
Of course.
Right? And so there's a responsibility in that. And so buyer and seller, if you don't really feel that connection, it's going to be a long road to get across the finish line.
Yeah. And knowing that this is someone who's going to help with, for a lot of people, some of the biggest transactions of their life.
That's right.
Right. And why would you not want somebody that you know, like, and trust, that you believe is very competent, that you know is delivering on a super high service standard? And, and like you said, inviting someone into your home is a very intimate process, right? And you don't just invite anybody into your home today, right?
Sure,
it has to be your friends or your family, people you actually want over as your company in your house. So wanting that type of standard for someone who's going to represent you to sell that property or to help you buy another one.
Well, and you also want an agent that has either that they themselves have a level of experience that meets the need for what you're trying to do, or their brokerage is able to assist you. I mean, if it's a 1031 exchange and you're looking at a purchase, then you need an agent who really understands what the mechanisms for that is on the sell side too. Or maybe you're a first-time home buyer and you really don't know any lenders, right? And it may be scary for you to go in and talk to a lender, right? First of all, they're all really nice. Well, most of them, and we build those relationships because they're part of our business partner. I mean, they're part of our team, right? So being able to be the conduit for that, so you just really need to, calling off a sign is one thing, but you really need to have and develop and make the time to develop a relationship with your agent.
Yeah. You talked about this a little bit as far as properties, telling a story about them, but also what you do from an advisory side with, the competency and the tools and the resources you have to be able to look at market trends and look at that specific home in that neighborhood. How has technology played a role in the real estate market, whether it be from helping buy or sell a property or delivering on those tools to your clients?
Yeah. So technology, all the new AI components and platforms that are out there certainly have an impact on our industry. From a seller standpoint, if you walk in and you're at a listing appointment, the seller already has an idea of what their home may trade for, but it's probably based on like the Zestimate from Zillow, right? And I'll just tell you, 9 times out of 10, that's inaccurate. It's just the data's at a lag. The algorithm may or may not be projecting the right number, and there's no local market knowledge behind that at all. And so we're competing against just that sort of sheer first glance of for the seller to think that their property is worth X when really it might be a little lower than that, or we may surprise them and it could be a little bit higher, right? Yeah. And that's why that sort of local expertise matters in the marketplace, to be able to articulate what is happening almost in real time. And so there are wonderful tools out there that will put together a comparative market analysis for you as an agent to provide to your seller. But if you don't have the local market knowledge, you are doing a disservice to your seller. AI is great. It does a lot of great things for us, a lot of tasks that take a little time that we can get back in our lives to do other things. But you can't rely on it.
Right.
You have to fact check it, and you have to be able to know how to present it. And so, from a seller standpoint, certainly, that's one that I would say you kind of really have to pay attention to. On the buy side, they're looking at those things too. You can help level set that from a buyer's perspective through the buyer consultation. And the automation piece is, if right now, I could turn something on my phone and any email that I get in while we're talking, it's going to automatically reply to that person. I don't do that a lot. But it's intuitive enough and knows how to write and speak in my voice, and it can reply. That doesn't feel authentic to me. There's moments when I'm going to be out of the office and it's a set period of time that I know I can't get to anything, but I want that person to feel heard, that I may utilize it. But until I feel very comfortable with that, I guess I'll just go back to old school Chris that picks up the phone and calls my client and
You cannot replace in person or talking to someone over the phone.
Ever.
Yeah.
Ever. And we see that a lot within the industry, even agent to agent, where that person wants to handle it on the other side by text or email. That just doesn't cultivate a collaborative experience. Yeah. And sometimes you really have to just talk things out to make sure that you are able to facilitate the transaction in the way that your client is instructing you, and through your advice. But at the end of the day, they're the decision maker,
right? And
you're 100,000% right. You can't beat picking up the phone. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Plus, it's fun, right? So yes, a lot of great tools. The technology deck that we have that's provided by Sotheby's International Realty is incredible. It's robust. They are always looking around the corner, seeing what's happening within the industry, providing something for us that combats that to take our service to the next level of what we're providing to our clients. But it's only as good as the person delivering it, right? You need to know your market. You need to know your client. And that takes time. And a lot of people don't spend the time to do that.
Well said. One thing about Sotheby's that I think is unique that people should understand is you have kind of a competitive advantage in the high-end luxury space.
Yeah.
We talked about kind of in broad terms where you've seen the market soften, whether it's coast to coast or even a little bit here locally. But for those people who are looking at acquiring a luxury or high-end piece of property, what does that market look like right now? Is that pretty much the same as call it average residential real estate?
John, it's interesting. So the upper brackets, and for us, in Central Arkansas, I'd tell you, $750, $1 million, that's a luxury property, right? It's just where we are in the market.
Yeah.
And those, so 24 over 23, we were trending like the national average. We were up, transactions were happening in that upper bracket. The first quarter of this year, we were outperforming the national average. We had sold 25% more than what the national average was in that upper bracket, which is really unique. It's throttled down a little bit. Now, what has happened is that the buyer profile for those properties has changed a little bit, and we're seeing cash buyers come in. A cash buyer always has a competitive advantage over most of the time. I shouldn't use an absolute like always, but has a competitive advantage over a buyer that's utilizing some type of loan structure and may waive concessions or inspection opportunity, all of those types of things that just streamline the transaction. And we're seeing those deals happen, maybe a little less than where the property was positioned from a price standpoint on the market, but it's taken across the finish line.
Instantly, it sounds like.
Pretty
much
close.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen, look, there's some really great title folks out there that can knock a deal down in 7 or 10 days. And if you have some of those folks in there, I hope they're part of your business and part of your partners, because when those clients that I have that want that transaction to happen fast, they're my first call. Can you get this across the finish line? And so we had one 2 weeks ago, closed within 13 days. It's pretty
incredible.
Quick. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and so the buyer did not want an inspection. They were cash. They moved forward as quickly as they possibly could. That's been a shift. We'll see what happens, throughout the rest of the year, politically, socioeconomics, geopolitical environments, all of those things wrap into that high net worth buyer who's looking to acquire different properties.
Yeah.
They're sophisticated. They know what they're looking for. They also know what value is, and they know what lifestyle they're trying to seek. And so you have to be very prepared for that and know your market. It might be a property that's not even listed yet, that if you have a relationship with the seller, you might be able to take it across the finish line.
That's really good insight. I want to talk a little bit more about kind of your journey and what you've learned. So there's a lot of people out there, whether they own a business or they're in a management or an executive position, that are listening. As a CEO, what are some lessons that you've learned thus far that you would want to share with others that are in a leadership position?
Yeah. So I love what I do. And part of what I love is working with the agents that are on or within our brokerage. I mean, we provide the service that I provide to my clients is the same white glove service that I provide to the agents that are working within the brokerage. There's not a question that comes in that we either can't find the answer to or know the answer, or willing to go seek advice from somebody to give us what the answer that we need. There's not a marketing question that comes in from the agent that we're not finding or building capacity around already, or we have the solution ready for them to go. I mean, so for me, I love working with the people that work with me. I love making sure that they are as successful as they want to be, because from a real estate perspective, it's really about, you could stand on the gas and you better buckle up, because you can have as many deals that come your way, but you have to work the system and understand the process of acquiring clients and working your sphere and your network. But I can't say enough about the daily routine that I have of just checking in with agents in our office to make sure that they are feeling supported and what they're doing is rewarding and it's meeting their why. And we have business planning sessions with our brokerage at least twice a year. But in that, it's sort of start the year off with what you've got. Let's then check and adjust in the middle of the year. But in that is consistent communication to see, are you meeting that goal? If you're not, how are we helping you to get there? While I was in that, I had a little bit of that piece when I was the chief marketing officer before I stepped into the role of owner and CEO. Now I really kind of put that, that's sort of day one for me. Like that's the first thing I do when I get up the first thing I do when I get up is write down a couple of gratitudes for the day, and which sets the tone for how you go about your business daily, right? And then check in with the agents to make sure that they are rocking and rolling, feeling supported.
And I think that's a good message for everybody that's in a leadership position, right? Yes, we need to be focused on our end client, and they're the reason why we have a job.
That's right.
But at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of the people who are also serving our clients, then there's going to be a disconnect and something and an outcome that maybe we don't want, whether it be from a production standpoint or from a client experience standpoint,
Yeah.
or even from an employee standpoint. There's going to be a breakdown somewhere if we don't check in and make sure that they're taken care of like our clients are.
That's exactly right. In the in Unreasonable Hospitality with Will Guidera, who took 11 Madison Park to the #1 restaurant in the world. He sort of unpacks this whole concept of two tensions, really, unreasonable and hospitality. Those sort of don't feel like they match and marry, right? But in there's a couple of little nuggets that I love. And one is like, it's cool to care. It's cool to really understand what's going on in someone's life and see if you can affect, like, can you change their channel? Can you help them see things differently? And that is exactly on the client side or within the agent side. It can be a little lonely out there when you are just feeling like you're fielding phone calls and you're fielding emails and you don't have a minute for yourself and you forgot to have lunch and you did all of those things and then no one's checking in on you.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe simplified, but for me, as stepping into that role, I really wanted to make sure that everyone on our team in our office feels seen and heard, and that they're having as a rewarding experience as I'm having.
I'm sure there's plenty of studies that show that if people feel seen and heard and supported, usually the numbers take care of themselves.
Yeah, and I'll say this: if they don't, then it's the first person I've got to look at is myself. Yeah. Right? There's a responsibility in that, but everybody can have. You can only affect your actions, not your outcome. Mm-hmm. Right? And so if those agents and we work through this all the time. If you're doing all the things, the only thing that you can do is continue to do all the things, right? The outcome's going to come, but you can't change it. You can't make someone buy a home. You can't make someone sell their property, right?
You can wake up and be diligent on what you're going to do every day.
You bet, every day. And I hope that's what you're doing, because we practice. It's a selling concept within the real estate industry called ninja selling. It's with Larry Kendall. But part of that is it's a systematic process of checking in with the people who know, love, and trust you, that love, and trust, right? And there's a lot of fun in that. And so as simple as that sounds, a lot of people don't do it, right? So
it's easy to be lazy.
Yeah. It's also easy to think that you liked or hearted something on Instagram and that was engagement. Well, you didn't do anything.
You did that along with the other 400 people.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Right. And so making those special connections with the people in your sphere will serve you in ways that you can't imagine.
Yeah.
I send a lot of notes out. It's
old school or?
Yeah, old school. Yeah. And I love it.
I do too.
It's one of the most rewarding things that I do in my daily practice is I try to get a few notes out a day. And it could be things a person I pass that I haven't seen in a while, or someone at the coffee shop, or an agent in the office, or a client, or whatnot. But when you scan your environment to take the time to send the note, I'm rewarded when it hits the mail. I don't have to have a phone call, and I don't need a response to that.
Yeah.
What's shocking is the responses that you get.
Yep. Because that is one thing that we love doing at Olympus is writing handwritten notes.
You bet.
Because I think as much as I love technology, I think you would agree with that too. It's looked at so much as how efficient can you make everything, which is great, right? Yeah. It leverage your tools to be more efficient. But when you lose the personal touch, or at least a lot of people do, or competitors do, and I'm glad they do, right? Because at the end of the day, if you take the time, I think that's what people appreciate is, Chris took the time, he wrote a note to me, he put a stamp on it, and he put it in the mail, right? I would say it's probably 50-50 shot if anybody even sends them an email, but knowing that you took the additional time to write the letter and drop it in the mail, That's one thing that I'm sure maybe your office is similar regards to Olympus is I don't mind seeing the postage expense every month. In fact, I don't want to see it go down
all day long. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, I will take, we've got a tray at the office, right? I will take those to the post office. I love seeing them writing notes and engaging with your client in that way.
I mean, just think of how much you appreciated growing up getting a birthday card in the mail.
You bet. Yeah.
And as an adult, you don't really get those anymore.
You don't get them anymore.
So why not just get a little note in the mail? It makes somebody's day.
That's right. And it puts you in top of mind for them. And so the next time you see them and engage with them, it's going to be even more rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one question maybe we can leave some listeners with is you talked about how Arkansas and Central Arkansas specifically with your expertise in this market with your team, how they're reacting slightly different than maybe the national average.
Yeah.
And so what makes this market unique relative to maybe the national average landscape? And then is there any kind of hidden gems with the various neighborhoods that you and your team seem to maybe get a lot more interest peaked than other places?
Yeah. So, Arkansas in general, Central Arkansas specifically, we don't see the volatility that a lot of coastal cities see. I mean, we're a pretty steady market, and that's held up by the strong economic development leaders at the city and state that support our healthcare environment, that support Central Arkansas having government here, but also being a transportation distribution hub for a lot of different types of companies. So our economy is pretty stable in that aspect. In that sort of in that context too, the pandemic did one thing in a positive way for home prices is that it levelized us up.
Yeah,
we were an underserved market. We were undervalued market, and so now we're a little bit more competitive. As a seller, you can kind of you can take advantage of that, and as a buyer, it's probably normal for you. And so that's a positive thing that happened in our marketplace. But from a national perspective, we are still seen as an incredible value for their dollar. And so, we'll have investors call for 1031 exchange, or they're potentially looking to relocate to Central Arkansas after retirement in 1 to 2 years. And they go ahead and purchase something because they see it as an incredible value for what they're able to get out of their property in California or New York or wherever they may be coming from.
Yeah.
What was your other question?
Oh, just if there's any areas within Central Arkansas that you and your team seem to get more interest peaked than other places.
Well, I'll say this from a buyer's perspective. It's a good time to be a buyer if you can stomach the interest rate and get beyond that, and you can use some of those mechanisms that we talked about earlier in financing. There's deals out there to be had. There's also investor deals out there to be had. So, I mean, I would say if you want to buy, the best time to buy a home is when you want to buy a home.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing. The best time to sell a home is when you want to sell a home. You just may have to move. Right. Things happen in your life.
Yeah.
And does that happen across the city in various different ways? Sure. I mean, are there some sort of areas that are that move a little quicker? Absolutely. I mean, you'll see the Heights and Hillcrest; those homes will trade more readily and than others ish. Chenal has a great mobility rate of people moving in and out, so you'll see those kind of turn. But the other opportunity is that home that's in Midtown that's 350 and below. That'll go tomorrow. And so it's just because there's not any inventory out there that meets the need for the current buyer in that space. So, those pockets have always been interesting. And then you'll see some of those neighborhoods like Robinwood or PV that if a home pops up there because they don't turn that often, it's pretty gangbusters, right?
Yeah.
And then the downtown market, there's a lot of property, a lot of condos on the market right now. It's softened a little bit. I think there's some incredible and exciting things happening with reinvestment in downtown, both by the chamber, by the downtown partnership, that will prove rewarding for those current owners in those towers and those looking to buy. There's a little piece of me that says kind of go buy those now, because you have the Arkansas Museum of Fine Arts. That's the most incredible thing that's happened in the city in a really long time, in my opinion. It's just an expression of culture and community that everyone and anyone can walk in the doors to see. And then you have the Clinton Center, a stone's throw away from that provides the same thing. So from a culture standpoint, now might be the time to consider something downtown. You just don't know, right? I mean, it's whatever your drivers are.
And like you said earlier, what lifestyle are you seeking?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And don't be scared of the market. Find the advisor. Ask the questions. They're gonna be your coach.
Yeah,
they're your coach.
Well, Chris, we really appreciate you coming on. Obviously, great depth of knowledge, and really love how you've built your team to serve clients from a not only competency standpoint, but from a service standard. And I would say anyone who's out there looking at buying or selling a home that doesn't already have a great relationship, reach out to Chris, and his team is incredible. So, Chris, thank you so much for coming on.
John, thanks for having me. This has been a blast.
All opinions expressed on the podcast by the host and guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Olympus Wealth Strategies or Uptick Partners, a registered investment advisor. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not legal advice and should not be relied upon as a basis for any decisions. The investments discussed on this podcast may not be suitable for all investors and involve risks that should be carefully considered. Listeners are encouraged to consult with a qualified financial advisor before making any investment decisions. Certain investments may require specific investor qualifications, which not all individuals may meet. Any funds or companies discussed are not a recommendation or endorsement. Guests in the podcast might be actual clients, but are not compensated to be on the show, and their experiences are not representative of all relationships, which might differ substantially.